I've got a new electric vehicle charger in the State of Charge garage, and this time it is the CleverCharge. It's available in either a 48 amp hardwired version or a 40 amp version with a NEMA 1450 plug. And the name CleverCharge didn't happen by accident. This may be the smartest smart charger that I've ever reviewed. And that's saying a lot because I've had some pretty smart chargers here in the past. So I'm gonna do my full review of this unit and find out just how smart it is. But first, let's open the box and see what comes inside. All right, so we're all unboxed. Let's take a look at the unit here. Okay, nice design, slim unit, nice compact design. Now, this unit is available in a hardwired 48 amp version and also a NEMA 1450 plug-in version that can deliver 40 amps. I asked for the NEMA 1450 version just because it's a little bit easier for me to do the reviews without having to hardwire it. Everything else will be the same on the unit except the power delivery. It has a 25-foot long cable and it has a J1772 connector. It's also available with a NAX, but I selected the J1772. I like this connector. It's got a good feel. It feels like it's quality. The only thing I will say is this connector, which other companies have been using, I recognize it's a popular one now, which I do like. But if I'm going to complain at all about it, there's no cover over the tip of the locking mechanism here, the locking mechanism. And sometimes if you drop it on this corner, it can break. And this bar here is plastic. I've seen this connector made with a metal locking tab, which would be better. So that's a little bit of a concern. If you drop this and it happens to land right on the end, there's a chance that it might break. And I don't know if this cable is replaceable. I will ask CleverCharge for clarity on that before I complete this review. Okay, so cable-wise, let's take a look at the thickness of the cable. Not the thinnest, but certainly not the thickest cable that we've had here. The cable is 18.6 millimeter thick. So not really super thin cables. I'll be interested to see how well this fares in our cold weather deep freeze test. We also have the quick start guide. We've got the connector holster, this big honking thing. This is a huge connector holster. One of the biggest that I've seen, unnecessarily large, if you ask me. And this is here, I'm curious why they gave me two of these. This is the CleverKey. And this is what unlocks the real smarts that the CleverCharge is supposed to have. Because you plug this into your OBD2 port, and it communicates with the charger and sends valuable data from the vehicle to the charger. And then they have AI intelligence that gives you all kind of information about charging. We're going to get into that later in the review. Again, don't know why they gave me two. They appear to be exactly the same. And yes, the part number is exactly the same. So in any event, they gave me two. I don't know if they just gave me two because I'm doing the review, or if you always get two in the box. Again, I will ask CleverCharge about this before I complete the review, you'll know. And then there are 8 anchors, 8 screws, and they also give you the driver bit for the screws. Now, as far as needing 8, you'd need 2 to mount the connector holster. And the back of the unit here, okay, it has a removable wall mounting bracket. It might be hard to see because it's white on white, but you remove these 4 screws on the side, then this piece is going to come off. You mount that on the wall, then you attach the 4 screws again. There are 6 holes on the back of this, so that seems a little bit of an overkill, but depending on what you're mounting it onto. If you're just mounting it onto sheetrock, the more screws with anchors, the better. If you're able to land these on a nice wood stud, then you don't need all 6 screws on the back of this. In any event, that's going to depend on your specific installation. Okay, before we jump into the review, let's take a look at the CleverCharge's key features. State of Charge is powered by Qmerit. North America's premier installer of electric vehicle charging equipment. After I've helped you decide which charger to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and have Qmerit install it. And if you do follow that link, Qmerit will waive the $150 installation deposit. But this is an exclusive offer for State of Charge followers. So in order to get that offer, you must follow the link in the description of my videos. As for the CleverCharge Home's key features, the 40 amp version costs $399 and the 48 amp version is $449. So there's a $50 difference. And it doesn't matter if you order it with the J1772 connector or the NACS connector. The price is the same. The dimensions are 12 inches by 8 inches by 3¼ inches. The unit's available in the 40 amp version, which will deliver 9.6 kilowatt, and a 48 amp version, which can deliver up to 11.5 kilowatt. It has adjustable power output from 10 amps up to 40 amps or 48 amps, depending on the unit you purchase. It has a 25-foot long cable that is 18.6 millimeter thick. There are J1772 and NACS connector options. It utilizes a CleverKey to access vehicle data. It has a Type 4 enclosure per UL50E, which is equivalent to a NEMA 4 enclosure. The only difference in that is NEMA 4 enclosures don't need to be independently tested and verified, but Type 4 UL50E rated enclosures do need to be independently tested and verified, which this unit was. It has an operating temperature of 122 degrees Fahrenheit down to -22 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. It's Energy Star rated. It comes with a 3-year factory warranty and it is made in India. As for installation, the CleverCharge Home is relatively straightforward, as most electric vehicle chargers are these days. As you can see, I've mounted the bracket here on the wall. I use this slot wall system, so it's not a permanent mount. But you can see there's a whole bunch of screws here that you could use to mount it to the wall. So hopefully you can land it on a stud, because you really want the charger to be mounted really securely to the wall, not just in drywall with drywall anchors. I mean, they'll be okay, but it's really best to get your chargers mounted directly to a stud so it really holds well. Once that's on the wall, you'll see here there's these 5 tabs that stick out. These 4 have holes on the side of the unit, and there's 4 screws that are provided. You basically just slide the unit on and then put the 4 screws in. Now I will note, these are just regular Phillips head screws. On most chargers, the screws that attach the unit to the mounting bracket are security screws, so that if this was mounted outside in the public area, somebody just couldn't show up with a Phillips head screwdriver and take it off the wall and steal it. Now, chances are the unit would be hardwired at that point, so they'd also have to cut the cable. But it just adds an extra level of security rather than just regular Phillips head screws. I know most thieves probably have security screwdrivers, so they can remove it anyway, but it does add an extra level. And I found it interesting that this unit just has regular Phillips head screws. So let me attach these here. And then we'll plug her in. Actually, I'm not going to plug it in yet because we're going to open up the cover and take a look inside. But if it was a hardwired unit, it would now be opening up to hardwire. We'll take a look at that in a second. So basically now you're just going to plug it into your NEMA 1450. I'm not going to plug it in yet because we're going to open it up. One thing I will note is that the NEMA 1450 plug that comes on the CleverCharge is ground up. You can see it here. The ground is on the top, so you need to have your NEMA 1450 outlet with the ground up. Now I mention that because most of the EVSE that I review here, it's ground down on the NEMA 1450. Very popular brands like grizzl-e, Emporia, Enphase, EVco, they're all ground down on the NEMA 1450 plug. So just know what you're going to buy ahead of time and install the outlet properly. Okay, so now let's take a look inside the unit. So as I mentioned, if you were going to use it with the NEMA 1450, just plug it in now, you're good to go. But if you got the 48 amp version, You need to hardwire it. So to do that, again, there's 4 screws on the side, and again, just a regular Phillips head screwdriver. So let's take these off. Okay. Now, when you remove the cover, you have to be careful because, as with most chargers that have LED lights, there'll be a cable from the circuit board to the cover, and if you pull it too hard, you're going to break it. So let me take this off. This is pretty tight. There we go. Much tighter than most. Okay. And yes, there's a cable. This is actually long. They're usually not even this long, as you could see. Sometimes they're really short. So let me press this in it. Unplug. Okay. Here's what your cover looks like. Okay, so this is what the unit looks like inside. If this was a hardwire unit, you're either going to bring in your power through here where the NEMA 1450 plug is, or it's maybe difficult for you to see, but right behind these wires, there's a knockout with a rubber plug. You can take your power through the back wall. So that way it's nice, clean insulation. Much better. Looks a lot better than piping in conduit from the outside. And it's safer too. You're not going to, nothing's going to hit this and break the conduit or break your wires. The rear entry for your wiring on a hardwired unit is definitely better. It's a better installation. Looks better too. So that's how you would come in through there, and you'd land your power right here. Everything else inside is pretty clean. Not much going on in there. There isn't a internal dip switch on this unit to set a hard current limit. With the CleverCharge, that's all done through the app. You can lower the current down lower than 40 amps with this plug-in unit, but you can't raise it higher than that. I like to see a hard limit set inside the chargers, as well as adjustable power within the app. The app will never allow you to exceed what's set inside, but you can't do that with this. And another thing that's very interesting, on the side of this unit, it does say 48 amp, 11.5 kilowatt. But this is the plug-in version, the NEMA 1450 version. So the most it can put out is 40 amps. So I asked CleverCharge about this, and what I had suspected was correct. These units are the same, whether it's the 40 amp unit or the 48 amp unit. There's no physical difference. But at the factory, they limit these to 40 amps if they put a plug on it. So let's say you wanted to hardwire this now, which you can do. You could remove this NEMA 1450 plug and hardwire this unit. It still is going to be limited to 40 amps, even though the unit itself is designed and can put out 48 amps. It is limited, and you can't undo that. And I understand why. This 40 amp plug-in unit costs $50 less than the 48 amp unit. So you could game the system if you were allowed to have this raised up to 48 amps. You just remove the plug, hardwire it, and you saved yourself $50. So, but it is exactly the same unit as the one they sell for $50 more. It just doesn't have this plug on it, which is interesting because this costs them more to make because it has a plug, but it costs $50 less. But that's because the output is going to be limited to 40 amps. So, okay, well, that's all we have for the inside. Now, the only other thing that I want to point out is I noticed this is a really thick rubber gasket here. Now, this is the equivalent of a NEMA 4 rated enclosure. I talked about that in the key features. So this has very good dust and waterproof rating. But this is one of the thickest rubber gaskets that I've seen, and it has a really, well, it would need to because the gasket is so thick, a really wide channel here for the gasket to go in. And let me plug this back in. And when you close the unit, you could actually hear the air being forced out of it when I push it closed. That's how tight it is. So I'm going to do that for a second. We'll see if we could hear that. So I think that you were able to hear the air getting forced out. I can actually feel it in my hand too. So this has a really good tight seal. I don't think you have to worry about any type of water intrusion during any kind of inclement weather. All right, so we're all installed. Next up, it's time to pair it with the app, which I've already downloaded, the CleverCharge app, and then also put the CleverKey in my OBD2 port on my Ford F-150 Lightning. Now, during the unboxing, I noted that there were two CleverKeys. Only one comes with the CleverCharge. You can buy additional CleverKeys. They cost, I think, about $125. But CleverCharge sent me two of them so that I could pair it with two vehicles if I wanted to. However, the CleverKey does not work with Rivian vehicles. And with Tesla vehicles, it doesn't work with pre-2026 Teslas. 2026 and on, it will work with them, but the earlier models, which is most of the Teslas on the road, the CleverKey isn't able to pull that data from the OBD2 port. Same with Rivian vehicles. And the second vehicle that I was going to pair it with here was my Rivian R1S. So I'm only going to be doing it with the Lightning. Another reason why I was going to pair it with the Rivian also was just to demonstrate that you can pair the unit with a number of different electric vehicles. And you can even have multiple units in multiple locations with multiple vehicles, and will all you'll get all the data in your one app if that's how you want it set up. So you could actually manage quite a few vehicles and quite a few chargers at different locations through one app and get the data on all of them. Let's say you're running a business and you had multiple vehicles in multiple locations. You can get all that data crunched in on one app and manage it that way. So what we're going to do now is pair this unit with my app, then insert the CleverKey in my Lightning, pair that, and get on with the review. All right, so once you've downloaded the CleverCharge app, open it up and tag Add a Charger. It will remind you to make sure the unit is powered up and ready for the pairing. You then scan the QR code on the side of the charger. Next, select a Wi-Fi network, enter the password, and the unit will begin to connect to your network. Once it's connected, you name the charger and enter the amperage the circuit is on. In my case, I have a 50 amp circuit feeding my NEMA 1450 outlet, so I selected that option. You'll notice that is the highest power output available in the app. If it were a 48 amp hardwired unit that I had ordered, the choices to select from would have gone up to 48 amps for a 60 amp circuit. Once you've selected the proper amperage of your circuit, the app will show you the maximum current that you'll be charging at. You can see here that even though I entered that the unit was installed on a 50 amp circuit, the maximum charging current will be 40 amps, which is because of the 80% rule when charging an EV. EV charging is considered a continuous load because it normally occurs for more than 3 continuous hours at a time. And continuous load circuits are limited to delivering only 80% of the circuit's maximum output. Next, the app will ask you if users need authorization to use the charger. My charger's in my private garage, and I'm not concerned with unauthorized users, so I'm going to select none. But you could set the app so you get a notification when someone plugs in. You can authorize the charging session or deny it. And there's also the option to have automatic authorization for those users who have CleverKeys plugged into their vehicle's OBD2 port. That's all. The app is now configured. Next, I'm going to set up the CleverKey. First, you need to turn your vehicle on, but don't plug the CleverKey in yet. You must first scan the QR code on the CleverKey, then locate your vehicle's OBD2 port and plug in the CleverKey. You then tag Continue, and the app will ask you to name the vehicle and enter what type of vehicle it is. The screen should then say that the vehicle has been added successfully, and you're done. It's time for our cold weather testing. With this test, I put the CleverCharge in this freezer for 24 hours. This is a deep freezer. It goes well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We freeze the unit for 24 hours, and then we do the cable pliability test to see how flexible the cable is in cold weather temperatures. I do the frozen connector drop test, and then also the unit power up test to make sure when I plug it in, it'll power up and charge an electric vehicle even in sub-zero temperatures. First, let's see how cold it is inside. negative 12.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty cold in there. Now I'll take the unit out. We'll see how well it does. Now if you notice, I always tie the cable up in small loops. Now I'm going to see how well it unfolds and if I can manipulate it well. You really want it to be able to be very flexible even in cold weathers if you live in a cold weather area, because you're going to be using this in cold weather, especially if you have it installed outside. Okay. This cable is really thick, the plug cable, but that really doesn't matter. This is the one that we're interested in. So let me see here. Oh, it's unfolding. It's not that bad. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's pretty good. It's actually very good. It's a little stiffer than what some of the other cables that are excellent in cold weather perform, but look at this. This is what you want to see. You want to see it flopping like this. So now let me see how well, I didn't put the connector holster on the wall, but I'll see how well I could fold it up over the unit itself. See, that's not bad. You can see the ice coming off the cable. I mean, it's not outstanding, but it's very good. It's still retaining some of those loops. Some of the cables that are absolutely the top rated cables just bend as if they're at room temperature. But this is very good. I'm not going to give it the best score, but it's a very good score. Okay, next up, we're going to do the connector drop test. And for that, I dropped the connector from about waist height 5 times, just to make sure that it can withstand a couple of drops. It's frozen, which makes the plastic more brittle, and this is a concrete floor. So let's see how it does. Two, 3, 4, 'Right on the end, 5. Okay, everything looks good, no damage. The plastic tab on the top, you might be able to see here, has the edge like crushed in just a little bit, but that's because it's plastic. That's why I prefer when these are metal, but it didn't break it and it's fine. The connector drop test is a pass. So the only final cold weather test I have to do is the power up test. For that, I'm going to plug the unit in. Then I'm going to pull my Rivian R1S into the garage, plug it in, make sure that it powers up and starts charging the vehicle. Now for that, I got to get this plugged in, which won't be the easiest because it's super stiff right now. Let me see. All right. This is kind of barely hanging on the wall, but it's okay. It is powering up. Now I'm going to pull my Rivian in and we'll plug it in, make sure it works. Okay, now you may notice that it has a red light on the front, but that's just that it's not connected to Wi-Fi. It's not any type of warning. Okay, so this is indicating that it's charging. We've got the blue pulsating lights. Let me take a look inside my Rivian. Yep, it's charging at the full 40 amps. So the CleverCharge passes all 3 of the cold weather testing. Cable pliability test did very good with that. the connector drop test, and also the cold weather power up test. Next up, it's time for the extreme heat test. In the extreme heat test, I put a heat lamp on the units for 2 hours. I maintain a surface temperature of roughly 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I do this to simulate if the unit was installed outside somewhere in direct sunlight in a hot area. It would easily have a surface temperature of over 100 degrees. I do this for 2 hours so that the unit really gets warm. All the innards and everything absorb the heat, and it's pretty much over 100 degrees all the way through. I then plug in one of my electric vehicles and let it charge for 2 hours at the full power the unit can put out, and I leave the heat lamp on it just to make sure that the unit doesn't derate or shut off or anything like that, and you can charge even in very hot climates. I've done that here and for 2 hours now. And as you can see here, let me get a good reading. The surface temperature is 123 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been over 100 degrees for 2 hours. Now I'm going to plug in my Rivian. We'll let it charge for 2 hours, and I'll make sure that it delivers the full 40 amps for 2 hours. Checking back after 2 hours, I monitored my Rivian app during the 2-hour charging session, and the unit continued to deliver the full 40 amps. The Rivian was charging at right around 9 kilowatts. It accepted 18 kilowatt hour over the 2 hours of charging, which means the unit never derated. It continued to deliver the full power, even though I kept the heat lamp on it and it was charging at full power. The surface temperature now is, let me get a good reading here, 175.5 degrees. So it's hotter than it would get under normal circumstances of charging, even if it was outside in direct sunlight. Now, obviously the innards aren't probably 175 degrees, probably close to that though. The outside's really taking the brunt of this heat lamp, but the units always generate a lot of heat while they're charging at full power. They always warm up inside, and that's why we do these extreme heat tests, to combine that with an external heat source to make sure that the unit can deliver full power under extreme circumstances. So that's a big pass on the extreme heat test. And finally, it's time for the automatic restart test. With the automatic restart test, I will plug in an electric vehicle, have it begin charging, and then I'll kill power to the circuit that powers the charger. I'll wait about a minute, and then I'll turn power back on. What I want to see is that the charger re-engages the vehicle, starts charging it again. There are some chargers that we found for some reason remain in a fault state. Now, that's happening less and less. This was a common problem a few years ago, but I think the charger companies are figuring it out, that it's very important to not remain in a fault state to restart charging the vehicle again. So we want to make sure it doesn't happen. The reason being is if during, let's say you're charging overnight and you have a temporary power outage, the power could just flicker for a few seconds. It stops charging and then you wake up and your vehicle hasn't finished charging. So let's start that now. I will plug in my Rivian R1S, kill power, and then make sure that the charger re-engages the vehicle and starts charging it again. Okay. There we go. She's charging. I'll shut off power. I'll be right back. Okay, I turned power back on, and let's see, the Rivian's charge port is red. Nope, now it just went to blue, and we're charging now. So pretty quickly, it re-engaged and started charging the electric vehicle again, so passes the automatic restart test. So at the beginning of the review, I said that the CleverCharge may be the smartest of smart chargers. And that's because paired with the CleverKey, it pulls data from your vehicle. It knows information about your vehicle that other chargers don't have. I mean, regular level 2 home chargers don't even know the state of charge that your vehicle is at. Unlike DC fast chargers, when you're DC fast charging, the charger does talk with the vehicle and it knows its state of charge. But home chargers don't. And that's why you could never set your home charger to, let's say, shut off at a certain percent. You'd need to do that in the vehicle. But the CleverCharge has all that data. So let's take a quick look at what it can do with it. Now, first off, it shows the current range for each vehicle connected in miles. And that's because the CleverCharge AI calculates range estimates based on the vehicle's actual consumption from your recent driving. It doesn't just estimate it based on the state of charge and the vehicle's EPA range rating. So as you continue to drive and charge the vehicle, the estimated range accuracy shown in the app will continue to improve and reflect real-world driving patterns. It'll give you charge reports that estimate cost of charging and driving on a per vehicle basis for each connected vehicle. It can send you nightly alerts and then notify drivers when their vehicle is at home and not plugged in and may not have enough range for the next day. Now, it calculates that based on the driver's daily driving behaviors, and it predicts charging needs so you don't forget to plug in at night. Now, there are other chargers that will send you automatic nightly reminders through the app, but those are just regular scheduled reminders. They're not basing it on your vehicle's state of charge and your average driving patterns like the CleverCharge does. It also has Arrival Clever AI alerts, and that's basically when you arrive home, it calculates the number of miles you're likely to drive tomorrow, and it'll determine if you need to charge based on the vehicle's range at that time. It has Charging Clever AI alerts. It calculates the number of miles you're likely to drive tomorrow and determines if charging is needed, and then sends you an alert when the range has been met for that specific vehicle. It gives you vehicle energy reports, and the vehicle energy report estimates how much you spend on each vehicle by charging at home and how much you spend at charging stations when you're away from home. It has vehicle trip reports. It records the miles you travel and estimates how much you spend on each trip for each vehicle. Vehicle in range. The CleverCharge detects when any of your vehicles with a CleverKey are in the garage and within Bluetooth range of any of your households that have a CleverCharge. Vehicles automatically show up at the household where they were last present on the CleverCharge phone app. Vehicle health. It queries the vehicle for diagnostic trouble codes, and if issues are found, the vehicle is shown in the app with a health issue indicator. It'll show you the charge status for all the vehicles you have paired. CleverCharge pairs with the CleverKey in all your vehicles, allowing the phone app to show you which vehicles are charging on which charger in which household. And it has access control. CleverCharge can be set up to only allow vehicles that are assigned to you with a CleverKey to charge in your household. For vehicles that do not have the CleverKey, the CleverCharge phone app will ask the account holder to authorize the charge. Vehicles with a CleverKey assigned to your account will automatically be allowed to charge when they plug in. All right, so I've been using the CleverCharge Home for about a month now, actually, and it charged a variety of electric vehicles on it just to make sure there are no compatibility issues, and everything worked just fine, including a Tesla that I charged with the J1772 to NACS adapter, so no issues there, and it's been charging my Lightning just fine, keeping all the stats in the app. You get to see all your different charging sessions, which is nice to see, but a lot of apps provide thorough, comprehensive reports on your charging sessions. There's nothing really specifically better about the way the CleverCharge does it. I tried out the scheduling. That worked just fine. Again, other apps do that. But overall, the unit performed like a very solid unit. And quite honestly, at $399 for the 40 amp version and $449 for the hardwired 48 amp version, the CleverCharge is a pretty solid value in my opinion. All right, so that's the good. The unit performed just fine, no issues, passed all of our tests. And now we'll talk about maybe some of the things that I don't love about the unit. First of all, the connector holster. I really don't like this connector holster. I mentioned earlier that it was larger than necessary, but that's really not the big issue. I just don't like the ergonomics of it. I mean, for instance, when I'm plugging it in, it's not a real easy, simple plug-in. Some of the connector holsters kind of guide you into the slot, and almost any way you put it in this hole, it locks. This one doesn't. You kind of have to be perfect, and you have to like lift it up, I noticed, at the end a little bit. Some of the times I pushed it in and it dropped off the connector holster. Not a big deal, but as you know, I'm here to nitpick every little thing about the chargers. It does have a nice tapered top for the cable. It holds the cable just fine, but not a fantastic connector holster. Also, for this being the smartest smart charger on the market, I found that the AI-powered clever features weren't particularly useful for my use case. You know, I think that it would serve customers better that had multiple locations with multiple vehicles. You know, in fact, like fleets, I think might really benefit from it. And another one of the things that I was a little surprised about was one of the selling points or features that they talked about was that you can compare what it costs you to charge at home with what it costs to charge you on the road. So I asked them about how that works with charging on the road. How do they know what you're paying? And they use an average based on public charging in your area, whether it's for level 2 or DC fast charging. So what I noticed is they were billing me, or not billing me, showing that I was paying 39 cents a kilowatt hour, when in fact the one time I went to charge, I was paying like 60 cents per kilowatt hour. So the data in the app isn't exactly correct when you want to compare home charging to public charging. I almost think that, and the fact that all the different networks charge different prices, I was going to say, I almost think that in order for that to really work, when you plugged into a public charger, the app would have to know that you did, which it does. It knows you're not home and you're charging. Then it might ask you, what are you paying per kilowatt hour? And you could type that into the app on that specific charger, and that way you could keep a record of what you're paying for home charging versus on the road. So that wasn't something that I think is implemented really well. Another thing I was disappointed in is that through the CleverKey, the charger, or the app at least, knows your vehicle's state of charge, which typically isn't the case with level 2 charging. When you're DC fast charging, the charger itself knows the vehicle's state of charge. But when you're on a level 2 charger, any level 2 charger, the charger and the app does not know your vehicle's state of charge. So it can't set a set point to shut off. Let's say I only want to charge at 80%. That has to get done in the vehicle. And the issue is some electric vehicles today don't have that ability to set a maximum charge level. They'll charge to 100% every time you plug them in. Now that's not normal. Most electric vehicles today allow you to set a stop point. 5-6 years ago, that wasn't the case. Very few electric vehicles let you shut off charging before it was fully charged. But now most of the vehicles allow you to set a point, but not all of them. The fact that the unit knows your state of charge and doesn't let you hit a shutoff point, I was disappointed in that. I think it should. I think that's one of the features that they're going to add because there are missing features, in my opinion, that this unit should be able to do as a smart charger, or the cleverest of all smart chargers. It also can't power share amongst multiple units, and it doesn't allow for dynamic load management in your house. So you have to have a circuit that can provide the full power for this, or you can't install it. Those are features that Dan Law, who produces the CleverCharge, are working on and are talking about updates down the road, that they'd be able to update the unit and they'll have those features. But it doesn't have those smart charging features right now. So I can't really say it's the smartest of smart chargers like I was hoping I'd be able to say at the beginning of this review. It has a lot of features. I love that the CleverKey integrates into your vehicle and your app gets all this information about your car, like the battery state of health you can see. My Lightning showed that I had 99% state of health in my bird, which I knew that the battery, even though it's 4 years old, is still in excellent condition. Most people don't know their battery state of health, how much capacity loss they've had, and this app allows you to see that. So that's a really good feature to have. But I think that the company can add other useful features and make it even better, and hopefully they will as time goes on. It's a new product, and I know they're working on adding more features in the future. All right, well, that's pretty much it for the review. Only thing we have left now is to talk about my scoring. And for that, first we're going to jump to the ChargerRater. All right, since the CleverCharge is available in two different options, the 40 amp and the 48 amp hardwired, I made a ChargerRater for both. But first, we're going to go over the 40 amp plug-in unit that I had in this review. So let's start off with that. In the cost and value category, it got 4 points because the price was under $400. It gets 3 points for a warranty because there's a 3-year warranty. And I gave it 2 points for an excellent value. At $399, this smart charger, including the CleverKey, is indeed an excellent value. So it finishes up the cost and value category with 24 points. For power and construction, it loses 1 point because it can only put out 40 amps. As for adjustable power, it gets 1 point because you can only adjust the power in the app. For cable length, it gets 2 points. For the connector, I gave it 4 out of 5. This is a very good connector. I like it a lot. Connector holster, I only gave it 2 points. And for temperature sensor in plug, it does not have one. It loses 3 points there. That's a very important feature. It should have a temperature sensor. If the plug is getting too hot, if the NEMA 1450 outlet is experiencing a problem, the unit should shut off. This doesn't. So it finishes up the power and construction category with 20 points. As for tests, it gets 4 out of 5 for extreme cold. It performed very well in the extreme cold weather test, particularly the cable deep freeze test. It was very pliable and flexible, even though it was frozen solid. It's a very good cold weather cable. It doesn't get any points for extreme heat because it passed the test. You only lose points there. For the automatic restart test, it gets a point. Safety certified, yes, it is safety certified, no points there. Energy Star certified, yes, it is. You get 1 point for Energy Star certification. Finishes up the testing category with 21 points. For intelligence, it gets 5 points for smart charging app. This is a very good app, and the fact that it combines with the CleverKey to offer information to the app that other chargers can't gave it the top score. For PowerShare capable, no points. Intelligent load management, no points. Solar charging, no points. Access control, it gets 1 point. For OPP standardization, it loses 2 points because it currently is only able to be controlled through the CleverCharge app. So it finishes up the intelligence category with 19 points. And that gives the CleverCharge Home 40 amp charger a total of 84 points, which when translated to a 5-star rating, gets 4.2 stars out of 5. Next up, we'll take a look at the ChargerRater for the CleverCharge Home 48 amp hardwired device. Okay, just about all of the scores are the same. I'm just gonna highlight the ones that aren't. The cost is $50 more, so it gets 3 points instead of the 4 that the 40 amp unit got. And it finishes the cost and value category with 23 points. For power and construction, it doesn't lose the 1 point that the 40 amp unit did because it can deliver 48 amps. And for the temperature sensor in the plug, because this is a hardwired unit, it doesn't lose the 3 points that the other unit did. So it finishes up the power and construction category with 24 points. So that's the only differences. Everything else is the same in the unit. So the ChargerRater final score is 87 points, which when translated to a 5-star rating, the CleverCharge 48 amp home unit gets a score of 4.35 stars out of 5. All right, so 4.2 stars out of 5 for the 40 amp plug-in unit and 4.35 stars out of 5 for the 48 amp hardwired unit. Good scores, especially considering that this is the first charger made by the company. It's not like they have a long history of making electric vehicle charging equipment. And the fact that it is the only unit that has the ability to communicate with your vehicle, I think it's a good starting point. And I do expect the company to add features in the future. it can get really interesting with the fact that the CleverKey plugs into the OBD2 port and communicates with the app, sending valuable information. I think there's a lot of things that this company could add in the future. Now, I'm not going to give them credit for the things they haven't added yet, but I know they are working on other features, and I think at some point down the road, you'll be able to get OTA updates and add really interesting things. But for now, this is the score that they have. I will revisit this charger in the future if they do add some interesting features. All right, well, next up, let's take a look at the hits and misses for the CleverCharge Home 40. I'll start off with the hits. It has very good multi-vehicle and multi-location management. As I mentioned earlier, I think this would be a very good selection if you're managing a fleet of vehicles where they were being charged at multiple locations. And then there's the fact that it pulls data from your vehicle's OBD2 port. That's really the cornerstone of the intelligence of the CleverCharge Home. And it had very good cold weather cable performance, one of the better performing cables that we've tested. And as for the misses, it does not have intelligent power management, and it can't power share between multiple units. I also found that the AI features that it currently had really weren't very useful for my particular use case. And finally, the fact that it doesn't have temperature sensors in the NEMA 1450 plug, that's a big miss for safety. All right, well, that's all I have here today for the CleverCharge Home review. I will note that in about a week, I'll be putting out a condensed version of this review. I call our quick charge reviews, where I take the long form review, cut it down to 10 minutes. So if you haven't watched this whole review, if you just fast forwarded to the end because you didn't want to watch 45-minute review on a charger, you can look out for that, and in about 10 minutes, you'll get all the information that was packed into this review. Now, I will have a link to purchase the CleverCharge in the description of this video if you're interested in buying it. And if this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.